When did you learn that good things come to those who wait? I learned that good things come to those who wait when I spent 3 years secretly collecting evidence against my husband who was poisoning me. Not like quick, deadly poison, but the slow kind that keeps you sick and dependent and nobody believes you when you try to tell them something's wrong. The kind that makes everyone think you're losing your mind while he plays the devoted husband. It started with small things about a year into our marriage. Headaches after dinner, stomach issues that came and went, dizziness that would hit me out of nowhere, fatigue that no amount of sleep could fix. At first I thought maybe it was stress or some weird virus, but it kept getting worse. Doctors kept saying anxiety or IBS, or maybe it's just in your head. Austin would hold my hand during appointments, so concerned, telling them how worried he was about me, how sometimes I'd get confused, paranoid even, how he had to manage all our finances now because my brain fog got so bad. I'd been with Austin for 7 years, married for 4. Everyone thought he was perfect, handsome, successful, patient. They'd say how lucky I was to have someone who took care of me when I was sick, managed everything when I couldn't. Our friends would comment on how he never complained, how he'd cancel plans to stay home with me when I wasn't feeling well. What a saint, they'd say. What a perfect husband. But something felt wrong. When he wasn't home, I'd feel better. Like physically better. When he traveled for work, I'd actually improve. My headaches would fade, my stomach would settle. Then he'd come back and within days I'd be dizzy, weak, forgetting conversations we supposedly had, losing hours like my brain just turned off, waking up groggy when I didn't remember falling asleep. The first time I suspected something, I was in the kitchen and saw him adding something to my tea when he thought I was in the bathroom. I confronted him directly. Big mistake. He recorded the whole thing on his phone, then played it for my mom, his parents, our friends Veda and Justin. Me sounding completely unhinged, accusing my perfect husband of trying to hurt me. You could hear the hysteria in my voice, the desperation. And Austin, so calm, so reasonable, asking me to please just take my medication, reminding me the doctor said these paranoid episodes might happen. Everyone looked at me with this mix of pity and fear. Veda pulled me aside later and whispered maybe I should listen to Austin. Maybe I did need help. After that, Austin started suggesting I see a psychiatrist. Said maybe I needed residential treatment. Kept saying we need to think about my safety. And when I was doubled over from stomach pain, he'd stroke my hair and whisper that he'd always take care of me no matter what. He'd tell people how challenging it was becoming, but that he'd made vows, in sickness and in health, and he'd never abandon me. Everyone admired him more. Poor Austin with his sick wife. I knew if I said anything again, he'd use it against me. Make me sound crazier. Maybe even have me committed. So I waited. Watched. Started dumping coffee when he wasn't looking. Stopped eating anything he prepared. Told him my stomach felt better with bland food, so I'd make separate meals. But I'd pretend to eat what he made, then flush it when he wasn't around. I bought activated charcoal tablets and took them secretly when he wasn't home. Hid them in a tampon box he'd never check. Slowly I got stronger. Clearer. Days where I could think straight for the first time in months. That's when I was sure. But I needed proof, not just suspicion. So I turned our guest room into my office. Said I needed my own space because my sleep was so disturbed. Started sleeping there most nights. Saying his snoring made everything worse. He didn't like it but couldn't argue without seeming controlling to others. I could see the frustration in his eyes, the calculations. I set up a tiny camera. Waited months collecting footage of him coming in at night, checking if I was asleep, adding something to the water bottle I kept by my bed. He'd stand there sometimes just watching me breathe. Once I caught him testing my reflexes while I was sleeping, pinching my arm, seeing if I'd wake up. Another time he held a mirror to my nose like he was checking if I was still breathing. The look on his face wasn't concern, it was disappointment. Once I had video evidence, I sent samples of my hair to a lab for testing, paying cash, using Veda's address. Saved bits of food he made special for me in labeled containers hidden in a cooler in my trunk. Documented everything in a journal I kept at Veda's house. Every symptom, every time he gave me food or drinks, every memory lapse. I started taking photos of myself daily, tracking the physical changes. The weight loss, the yellowing skin, the brittle hair. This went on for almost a year. Then another. I played the part. Weak wife, getting more forgetful, more dependent. I'd deliberately knock things over sometimes or forget basic words mid-conversation when others were around. All while gathering evidence. While he thought I was at therapy appointments, I was meeting with a lawyer. Found out Austin had taken out extra life insurance on me, had been talking to my doctor about my deteriorating mental state, telling colleagues his poor wife was getting early onset dementia. I discovered he'd been researching symptoms of arsenic poisoning, looking up untraceable toxins, had been making jokes to friends about being a widower someday. The 3rd year was the hardest. He started bringing his friend Otto around more. Otto, who was a pharmacist, they'd whisper together and stop when I entered rooms. I'd catch phrases like, build tolerance, and might need something stronger. Austin started talking about moving us somewhere quieter, somewhere I could rest properly. Mentioned how his cousin Annie had a lake house we could use, remote, peaceful. No one around for miles. Started making plans without consulting me, telling people the move was for my health. Bought hiking equipment, fishing gear. Mentioned to Justin how deep the lake was, how easy it would be to disappear there. I knew it was time. I couldn't wait any longer. But going to the police with partial evidence would be his word against mine. The word of a woman who everyone believed was mentally ill. My own mother had started talking about guardianship, so I did something desperate, something dangerous. I invited Veda over when Austin was making dinner. I told her I needed her support, that things were getting worse. She'd been my friend since college, before Austin. I hoped somewhere deep down she still trusted me. That night, Austin made his special pasta, the one that always made me violently ill afterward. I switched our plates when he went to answer the door. My heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. I ate his food. He ate the meal he'd prepared for me. We all sat there making small talk while I waited. Veda oblivious. Austin smiling that patient smile. Within an hour, he was disoriented, confused, dropping things, slurring his words. While Veda watched in horror, Austin couldn't remember what day it was. Couldn't stand properly. Kept asking why we were looking at him like that. I pretended to be concerned, called poison control, described his symptoms. They told me to get him to a hospital immediately. Veda was already calling 911, panic in her voice. That's when I put the journal, the video footage, the lab results on the table. Showed Veda everything while Austin sat there, still affected by whatever he'd put in my food. Watched her face as she realized everything. The years of gaslighting, the poison, the slow, deliberate attempt to make me disappear while looking like the devoted husband. By the time the ambulance arrived, Veda was holding my hand so tight it hurt. Told the paramedics they needed to test for poison, showed them the food samples. When they asked who had prepared the meal, I pointed to Austin, told them there was more evidence, so much more. The police came too, found the bottles in his desk drawer, found more substances in his car, found searches on his computer about inheritance laws, untraceable poisons, how to commit the perfect murder. First update, it's been 21 days since Austin was arrested. They kept him in the hospital for 3 days to treat the poisoning and monitor his system. The doctor said whatever he ingested was a complex mix, mostly heavy metals and some pharmaceutical compounds that one doctor said was not something anyone could mix up accidentally. I keep thinking about how that could have been me in that hospital bed, how many times it almost was. The police interviewed me for hours, made me go through everything from the beginning. They kept asking why I didn't come forward sooner, why I waited years instead of months. I tried explaining how Austin had systematically isolated me, convinced everyone I was mentally ill, controlled all our finances, monitored my movements. The detective taking notes didn't look convinced until Veda spoke up. Told them how Austin would explain away my episodes to everyone, how he'd show videos of me acting crazy at dinner parties as evidence of my deteriorating mental state, how he'd coached all our friends on what to do if I started making accusations. When they searched our house, they found a hidden compartment in his office wall safe. Inside were vials of substances labeled with dates and dosages, a journal with notes about my symptoms after each treatment, as he called it, pages of observations about which combinations made me sleep longer, which ones caused memory loss versus physical weakness. It was all so clinical, so detailed, so fucking planned. They found research on poisons that mimic natural diseases, printouts about untraceable toxins, a file with info on Annie's house including underwater topography maps, a waterproof bag with weights. Veda hasn't left my side. She sleeps on my couch now, says she doesn't trust me being alone after everything. She keeps apologizing for not seeing it sooner, for believing him over me. I can't even be angry with her because he fooled everyone. He was so good at it, so believable in his concern, so patient in his execution. Austin's family showed up at the police station screaming about false accusations. His mother, Sydney, insisted I was the mentally unstable one, that I'd been hallucinating and paranoid for years, kept saying he was just trying to help me, that any medication he gave me was prescribed by doctors, demanded to see the evidence. When they wouldn't show her, she started calling everyone we know, claiming I'd set Austin up, that I'd poisoned him in some twisted revenge fantasy, that I was the dangerous one. The preliminary hearing was yesterday. Austin sat there in his orange jumpsuit looking so different from the man I married. He wouldn't look at me directly, but I could feel his hatred from across the room. The prosecutor laid out the evidence, the videos, the journals, the lab tests, the containers of poisons. The judge denied bail, called him a flight risk and danger to the community. His lawyer kept arguing about tainted evidence, about my history of mental instability, about how this was all a misunderstanding between a devoted husband and his paranoid wife. That's when they brought up Otto. The police had questioned him after finding texts between him and Austin, discussing compounds and dosages and building tolerance slowly. Otto claimed he thought they were talking about supplements, that he had no idea Austin was poisoning me, said their conversations about pharmaceuticals were just theoretical discussions between friends. The prosecutor showed evidence that Otto had stolen medications from his pharmacy, had been helping Austin research obscure toxins, had even ordered specialized chemicals using his professional credentials. Otto's out on bail, his pharmacy license suspended pending investigation, his lawyer arguing he was manipulated by Austin, that he never knew the real purpose behind their academic discussions. The thing that terrifies me is how believable Otto's defense sounds, how easily someone could buy that he was just another victim of Austin's manipulation. Just like everyone thought I was crazy, they might believe Otto is innocent. My medical test came back last week. Years of low-dose poisoning has damaged my kidneys. My liver function is compromised. I have neurological symptoms that might never fully resolve. The doctor said I'm lucky to be alive, that the amount of heavy metals in my system should have killed me. The only reason it didn't is because I started secretly taking those charcoal tablets. Because I stopped actually consuming what he gave me. Because something in me fought to survive even when I didn't fully understand what was happening. Justin finally called yesterday. He was crying, apologizing for not believing me. Said Austin had convinced him I was having psychotic breaks, that my accusations were part of my illness. Justin admitted Austin had shown him edited versions of our arguments, spliced together to make me look unhinged while Austin appeared calm and reasonable. Said he feels sick thinking about all the times he encouraged me to listen to Austin and take my medication. Austin's lawyer contacted mine yesterday. They're building a defense around my mental health, claiming I've been suffering from delusional disorder for years, that Austin was administering prescribed medications because I refused to take them voluntarily. They've subpoenaed all my medical records, all my therapy notes. They're trying to paint me as the unstable one who set him up out of paranoid delusions. My lawyer says we need to prepare for them to get really ugly, to twist everything to make me look crazy. I had a panic attack in the grocery store this morning, just standing there looking at pasta sauce and suddenly couldn't breathe. Kept thinking about all those dinners, all those meals he prepared specially for me, all the times I ate what he gave me, trusting him. Veda found me curled up in the aisle, hyperventilating. An employee asked if I needed an ambulance and I just lost it, screaming that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't making it up. Sydney called my mother, convinced her that I've had a psychotic break, that the stress of Austin's arrest has pushed me over the edge. My own mother showed up with papers for emergency psychiatric evaluation, stood in my living room telling me she just wants to help, that she's worried about me, that maybe I need some time in a safe place to process everything. Veda had to physically block the door when two men showed up claiming to be from a psychiatric facility, had to threaten to call the police before they left. My mother crying that she just wants her daughter back, the one before all this poisoning nonsense started. The financial investigation is another nightmare. Austin had been moving money for years, small amounts into accounts I never knew existed, had been secretly selling off our investments, liquidating assets. The detective handling the financial crimes part says it looks like he was planning to disappear, had been setting up an exit strategy long before I caught him. They found evidence he'd been researching countries without extradition treaties, had been in contact with someone about new identification documents, had a go bag hidden in his office with cash. Yesterday they found a second phone in Austin's car, contacts I'd never seen, messages to people I don't know discussing the plan and timing and making it look natural. Messages to Otto about increasing dosages and accelerating the timeline. Messages to Logan, a name I'd never heard before, about cleaning up loose ends and handling the Veda situation. The police are trying to locate this Logan person. I can't sleep without seeing Austin standing over my bed, watching me breathe. Can't eat without wondering if there's something in my food. Veda prepares all our meals now, but sometimes I still can't make myself swallow. Lost another 5 pounds this week. The therapist I'm seeing says it's PTSD, says my body is still in survival mode, says it might be a long time before I feel safe again. Tomorrow we have a meeting with the prosecutor. They want me to walk through everything again, chronologically. Want to make sure their case is airtight. My lawyer says they're worried about the mental health angle Austin's team is pushing, worried a jury might be swayed by the grieving husband narrative, by the idea that he was just trying to help his troubled wife. They need me to be strong, consistent, believable. But how do you convince strangers of something that sounds so unbelievable? How do you prove you're not crazy when someone spent years making everyone think you are? Austin's parents have filed a petition for guardianship over him, claiming he's been unduly influenced by me for years, that I've been mentally abusing him, manipulating him. They're saying he needs protection from me even while he's in jail. The absolute fucking irony of it would be laughable if it wasn't so terrifying. They've hired a psychiatrist who's prepared to testify that Austin exhibits signs of coercive control victimhood, that he may have been acting under duress, under my control. The complete inversion of reality is staggering. The police still haven't located Otto. He missed his check-in with his probation officer yesterday. His apartment was cleaned out. His car found abandoned at a bus station. The detective called this morning saying they're expanding the search, that he's now considered a fugitive, that I should be careful, stay with someone, report anything suspicious. As if I haven't been doing that for years already. As if my entire existence hasn't become an exercise in hypervigilance. I think about what would have happened if I hadn't waited, if I'd gone to the police earlier with partial evidence, if I'd tried to run without proof. Austin would have found me, would have convinced everyone I was having a breakdown, would have had me committed, or worse, would have taken me to that house, to those deep, dark waters, to that weighted waterproof bag. Second update. It's been almost 3 months since my last update. So much has happened, I don't even know where to start. Austin's trial finally began last week. His lawyer keeps referring to my history of mental instability and paranoid tendencies, keeps talking about Austin as this devoted husband pushed to the breaking point by his wife's deteriorating condition. The prosecutor showed the videos I recorded. Austin standing over me while I slept, testing if I would wake up, adding substances to my food, my drinks, my medications. The entire courtroom went silent watching him methodically contaminate my water bottle, then stand there watching, waiting, this look on his face that wasn't concern but something cold. His lawyer tried to argue the videos were taken out of context, that Austin was checking my breathing because he was worried about my health conditions, that he was adding prescribed medications to my drinks because I refused to take them. It's terrifying how plausible he makes it sound. They found Otto 2 weeks ago hiding at Annie's house. The same place Austin had planned to take me. The same place with the deep water and no witnesses. Otto broke down during questioning, admitted everything. How he'd been supplying Austin with pharmaceuticals. How they'd researched toxins together, calculated dosages that would cause symptoms without killing me immediately. How Austin had talked about accelerating the timeline, about how it needed to look natural when it finally happened. Otto's testimony is devastating, but his lawyer is already working on a plea deal, claiming he was manipulated, coerced, afraid of Austin himself. Veda testified yesterday, described how Austin would show everyone videos of me acting crazy, how he'd coach our friends on how to handle my episodes, how he'd tell stories about things I'd supposedly done or said that I had no memory of. She broke down crying when describing the night of the dinner, seeing Austin disoriented from his own poison, realizing everything I'd been saying for years was true. The defense tried to paint her as my accomplice, suggested we'd conspired together to frame Austin, tried to make it seem like we'd always been lovers, that this was some elaborate revenge plot. Veda held firm, but I could see how much it cost her. The medical experts testified about the substances found in my system, the damage to my organs, the neurological effects that might be permanent, explained how the poisoning was deliberate, methodical, designed to mimic natural disease progression. Austin's lawyer kept interrupting, kept trying to suggest alternative explanations, kept asking if my symptoms could be psychosomatic, could be manifestations of mental illness, rather than poisoning. One doctor finally snapped, said heavy metals don't appear in your bloodstream because of anxiety. The jury seemed to respond to that, but who knows what they're really thinking. Sydney approached me in the courthouse bathroom yesterday, cornered me when I was alone, told me she knows what I did to her son, knows I'm the sick one, said Austin told her everything about my condition, about how I would hide my medications, about how I would hurt myself and blame him. She was so convinced, so absolutely certain of my guilt. The scariest part was looking in her eyes and seeing Austin there. The same calm certainty, the same absolute conviction in their own reality. I realized then where he learned it, how deep this goes in his family, how he was raised by someone who could rewrite truth just as easily as he could. Justin testified today. Admitted Austin had shown him edited videos of me, had convinced him I was having mental breaks. Described conversations where Austin would express concern about my paranoid accusations months before I ever suspected anything. How Austin had been laying groundwork, creating witnesses to my supposed instability long before I started getting sick. The defense tried to discredit him, suggested he was changing his story out of guilt for not believing me sooner, tried to make it seem like he was overcorrecting, like his testimony was unreliable. The financial investigator presented evidence of Austin's planning, the hidden accounts, the liquidated assets, the research on countries without extradition treaties, the go bag with cash and fake identification. The defense tried to spin it as Austin preparing emergency resources in case my condition worsened, suggested he was planning to take me somewhere for specialized treatment, that the cash was because he didn't trust banks after some fraud incident years ago. Again, the explanations sound just plausible enough to create doubt, just reasonable enough to make you question everything you know. They finally located Logan. He was Austin's college roommate, someone I'd never met or even heard mentioned. Logan admitted Austin had approached him about handling a situation with Veda if she became suspicious. Said Austin had offered him money to scare her off if she started asking too many questions. Logan claims he never intended to go through with it, that he was just stringing Austin along. The defense immediately moved to have his testimony excluded, claimed it was hearsay, irrelevant, prejudicial. The judge allowed it, but instructed the jury to consider it in context, whatever that means. My mother still won't speak to me, still believes I'm having some kind of breakdown. Sydney got to her so completely, convinced her that I need help, not justice, that Austin was trying to save me from myself. Veda tried to talk to her, show her the evidence, but my mother just shuts down. Says she can't bear to see what I've become. Says she's praying for me to find my way back to reality. It's like losing her all over again. Like Austin is still taking pieces of my life away even from behind bars. The defense brought in their psychiatric expert yesterday. He never examined me, never even met me, but still testified for hours about how my symptoms align with delusional disorder. How people with this condition can construct elaborate conspiracy theories, can misinterpret innocent actions as malicious, can even manipulate others into believing their delusions. Watching this man who's never spoken a word to me confidently describe my supposed mental illness to the jury was surreal. Felt like being erased in real time. Like my reality was being overwritten right in front of me. Our side brought in experts too, psychiatrists who explained how gaslighting works, how abusers isolate their victims, undermine their perception of reality, create doubt in their own minds. Explained how Austin's actions followed the classic pattern of psychological abuse. Veda and I still live together, both too afraid to be alone. She's still the only one who really understands what happened, the only one who saw it with her own eyes, who can confirm I'm not crazy, that it all really happened. Without her, I don't know if I could have survived this. Don't know if I would have had the strength to sit in that courtroom day after day, facing Austin, facing his family, facing all the people who still think I'm making this up. The jury starts deliberation tomorrow. My lawyer says the evidence is strong, but warns me not to get my hopes up. Says cases like this can be unpredictable. Says Austin's performance as the concerned husband is convincing. Says we need to prepare for any outcome. Last update, the jury deliberated for 4 days. 4 days of sitting in that courthouse hallway, jumping every time a door opened. Veda next to me the whole time, holding my hand so tight it hurt. My lawyer kept saying no news is good news, that quick verdicts usually favor the defense, that the longer they talked, the more likely they were actually examining the evidence. Still, by the 3rd day, I was convinced they didn't believe me, convinced Austin's performance had worked. When they finally came back, I couldn't breathe. Then one word: guilty. Guilty on all counts. Attempted murder, poisoning, psychological abuse, financial fraud, guilty, guilty, guilty. Austin didn't react at first, just sat there staring straight ahead like he hadn't heard. Then his lawyer whispered something and his face changed. For just a second, the mask slipped and I saw it. Pure rage. The real Austin, finally visible to everyone. The sentencing was yesterday. 15 years without possibility of parole. The judge called it one of the most calculated, cruel cases of domestic abuse she'd ever seen. Said the methodical nature of the poisoning, the psychological manipulation, the financial planning all pointed to someone who was a continuing danger to society. Austin finally spoke, claimed he still loved me, that he was only trying to help, that someday I'd understand everything he did was for my own good. The judge cut him off, told him to save his manipulations for his prison therapist. Sydney had to be removed from the courtroom, screaming that I'd ruined her son's life, that I'd manipulated everyone, that someday they'd all see the truth. Security had to physically escort her out as she lunged toward me, still screaming that I was the sick one, the crazy one. Even with all the evidence, all the testimony, she still can't accept what her son did. Still can't see him as anything but the victim in all this. Otto got 8 years with possibility of parole after 3, part of his plea deal for testifying against Austin. Logan got probation for coming forward about the plans to intimidate Veda. Justin sent flowers to my apartment, but I haven't responded. Still don't know how to feel about everyone who didn't believe me, who thought I was imagining everything, who watched me deteriorating and sided with Austin anyway. My mother finally called last week. Didn't exactly apologize, but said she'd been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of remembering. Said there were signs she'd missed years ago, things Austin would say or do that seemed off but that she'd dismissed. Asked if we could talk sometime. I said maybe, someday. Don't know if I'll ever fully trust her again. Don't know if that relationship can be repaired. Veda says I should try. Says family is important. But Veda doesn't understand that my mother chose Austin over me. Chose to believe I was crazy rather than believe I was being poisoned. Some betrayals cut too deep for simple forgiveness. We're moving next month. Veda and me, somewhere new, somewhere without memories. She's become my family through all this. The one person who saw the truth when it was right in front of her. Who believed me when it mattered most. Who stood by me through the investigation, the trial, the endless questioning of my sanity. We're not running away, just starting over. They say good things come to those who wait. I waited 3 years to be free. 3 years to be believed. 3 years to reclaim my mind, my body, my truth. The waiting nearly killed me. But in the end, it saved my life.